Hey there Paranormal Explorers, Ashley Knibb from ashleyknibb.com here. The blog post about the paranormal and everything else that's going around the supernatural kind of field. Today I thought I'd do a YouTube video, firstly because I haven't done one in a long while, since last year I think actually, and secondly because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this, the Paranormal Investigators Journal, something I brought out a little while ago and have been trying to push out there for you guys to use within your investigations. This version is obviously a little bit battered up because this is my version, the one that I use to document investigations and stuff like that. But what I thought I'd do is I'd go through the journal, it's what's inside the journal, what you can use it for, how it can be used, where the concept came from perhaps a little bit as well. On that first point, the idea was basically I used to scribble down all my notes into different types of notebooks, all different types of notebooks. And structure-wise, they didn't really have the greatest of bits and pieces, so I was trying to find a way to nail that down into a format that could be easily used and easily documented, so it's always in the same format and it's an easy way to go backwards and forwards, and that's what the journal came in. But basically, the idea was to come up with an idea so that I could put several investigations into one book, yet still document all the paranormal activity events that occurred during an investigation across all those investigations, so that I could tally them up and all that kind of stuff. And have all the historic information in there and the activity information from previous investigations, all that kind of stuff, all in one place, so that I could continue to document investigations as they go ahead. So that's where the idea came from for the Paranormal Investigators Journal, and what I think it's good to be used for. So what I'll do is I'll now switch over and show you the inside of the book and go through it a little bit and show you how I use it to document paranormal and stuff like that. Okay. Okay, so I thought I'd go through today the Paranormal Investigators Journal. There he is. Okay, so yes, first things first, let's get this cleared up just before we get started. Yes, my one is a little bit battered. It has been used. It has been taken out on investigations, and it has been folded over here and shoved in my back pocket so that I can access it whenever something happens. Proof that it does work, and that's what it's supposed to be for. It should be battered, I think, unless you look after things really well, unlike me. So let's get on to it. So basically, when you get through the cover, you've got basically, get straight in there, obviously a few things, you've got all the titles, all that kind of stuff that breaks the whole thing down, so you know where everything's going to be. A nice contents page for you. So here, first things first, you can put your name and contact details, so if you lose it, or someone else has got one, you can get it back nice and easily. Then you've got all the list of all your investigations. I've chucked a few in there, Warwick Castle, and Rye. And then I've detailed here, what's it all about? It's an idea that has helped structure my own notes and document investigations, and I thought it would be good for everybody else to have a similar kind of thing. So that's what I broke down, the idea basically, and then we go into how to use it. This section here goes all the way through each of the bits and pieces, each of the sections, and tells you exactly how to use the journal and where things are found, including the investigation logs like this, so you can document all the information you need and gives you some ideas about what should go in there and all those kind of bits and pieces. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this bit right now in this second, because I'm going to do that in a second when I go through it myself. So if we move on past that bit, obviously, yeah, we've got the experiments, so I list down the 6 experiments you've got in there to help you come up with ideas for your own investigations and what you can do. Straight up, we get the investigations. This section basically covers off the top line information on your investigations. So if we go to one that hasn't been filled in, which is probably going to be quite far along, let's go to investigation number 3. No, let's go to investigation number 4. So, right, so it's number 5. So basically it starts off with a page like this, investigation number 5. You've got some blank space here to do whatever you want, really. You can draw, write, whatever. Then you've got some location information, so you can put down there, you know, the title of the place you're going to, Peterborough Museum, Peterborough is where it is. You know, postcodes all can go in here as well, so you've got that access or later on. You've got the start date of the investigation and the start time as well here. Very important. So you know when you kick things off, when you first get in there, you first start things, you've got a documented time of when that event started. And then right at the end, you've got the investigation end date. So when it ended, which is usually in today's sort of scenarios, is usually the next day. So that'll be that date in there, and then the time that you finish as well, usually early in the morning, isn't it? And then following that, we've got historical research. Now, speaking to teams and people, some people like to do this bit beforehand, some people like to do it after the fact, so it's all really down to personal preference, but I like to do it beforehand, so I know a bit more about the location I'm going to before I get there. So this is the area where you write all that kind of stuff down, names and all that kind of stuff that relate to the location and who's been there, all that kind of lovely stuff that can sort of corroborate any information you might get through like EVPs or video or anything like that. Moving on, we've got the previously recorded activity. So here you'd write down, I don't know, audible phenomenon recorded in room X and all that kind of stuff, you know, apparitions seen in the corridor, lots and lots of VVPs recorded, temperature dropped in the main hall, that kind of stuff. I've then left here like a space for notes that can be used for whatever you need it to be. It can be additional activity notes if you need to, or what I've also seen some people do is what's called threading. I'll get onto that later, but basically you can use it to link into all the event logs that you've got, so you can know what pages they're on, because that's one of the important things as well. Down the bottom here we've got a page number all the way through the book, which you can use to thread backwards and forwards with. Next up is investigation team. So if you've got a team, you can list down their names and what their roles and skills are within the group, so you know who's doing what and where and all that kind of stuff down this section. And then the next page to that is your equipment list. So you can your top line information about your equipment that you're taking with you that you need to use, things like CCTV, EMF meters, temperature gauges, data loggers, all that fancy stuff, camcorders. You can list all the way down here, so you've got a bit of a list and understanding to help you planning of your investigation before you even get there. So you've got all this nice stuff all listed down there. Moving on a little bit more, you've got location information. Now the idea around this was to get an understanding of the location, and I'll show you a bit more about this in a minute, but this is so you can solely get an understanding of the location itself. So things like the layout of the location, even like down to floor plans, you know, parking when you arrive, all this kind of stuff can be put into these pages along here to help you understand the location itself. Health and safety things if you're doing with a big team, all that kind of lovely stuff can go in there, and you've got all that kind of information go there, and it goes across into a location map, so you can draw your maps into here, like I just mentioned, and then so you can document the space you're in. That's always very good, especially when you're doing like smaller areas, so you can understand what happened and where. And then you've got the investigation plan. These pages are basically so you can lay out how you're going to plan your investigation, what you're going to do when, where you're going to start, where you're going to have briefings, where you're going to have vigils, all that kind of stuff. Your timings for all your plan, for all of your night can be put down into here. Obviously, it's always a brief sort of overview of what you're going to do, because sometimes that changes due to the fact that activity happens in different places and you have to chase it a little bit. So it's a bit of a brief overview of what you're going to do if that's the way you want to work, or how you want to do things, sort of thing. And then you've got some more notes, basically, about what you want to do with that. Now, what you've probably noticed is there's no information about any of the events or paranormal activity that I have. So what I've done is I've moved that across into a section of its own. So you've got a whole section of the book that literally lists, if I can find it, literally lists the event logs from here, page 107, all the way through. So basically you've got all these pages of event logs that you can fill out. So every time something paranormal happens, that's fine, that's blank page, you can use one of these pages to list down the event log. And what you do is you say, right, it's investigation number 1 to 6. You can put a reference in there if you want to as well. So like Warwick Castle or something like that. You can put the date and the time it occurred, because obviously some investigations may go over 2 days. So you've got the date when it occurred and the time when it occurred. The location in this case is now the location within the location, so to speak. So if it's the main hall within a castle, you put main hall, and that's where that would go in there, and that helps you understand that. Now you've got after that you've got activity category. So is it physical? Did something physical happen, like a stone being thrown or something like that? Is it psychical, as in was there mediumship occurred? Did someone pick up something in a sort of like a psychical manner? Is it audible? Did you hear a voice, or was an EVP being recorded? That kind of stuff. Is it visible? Was an apparition seen? Was like a ghost, sort of, I don't know, sort of like a mist or something seen? Was it ITC? As in, was it some kind of technical device, like an iPad or a ghost box or an Ovulus, something like that? Was it recorded through that? Is that where the information came from? If you tick that one there. And what I've also mentioned before as well is you can tick multiple of these. So it could be that your activity crosses all of these, in which case you tick all of them. The next section is team members present. So if you've got a team of 10, but only 5 of that team were in the area at the time, then you list down those 5 names in here. And then you can understand who they are. Now, this is where the planning bit comes in, because in the planning bit, if you've listed all their names already, you can put in brackets their sort of like their initials. So then all you need to put in here is the initials of those people. So like AK for me, and things like that. And and that way you can make it nice and quick and simple for yourself. Activity witnesses. This is basically the individuals within that group that were in the team members present, the individuals in that group that managed to witness this activity. So again, if you've got 5 people that were present, but only 2 people witnessed it, then you put their names down in the witnesses. And that kind of like breaks it down. So you can understand who was there, but who witnessed it. And then you can try and understand why did they witness it and why did they not witness it, sort of thing. And then in this section here, I've left quite a nice big bit of white space for you to write down the activity description. As much information as you want, or as little information as you want. It could be a one-liner. It could be a whole paragraph if you want. You could write tiny, make a story in there. But basically, that should be enough information to get a nice brief description of the activity that you've experienced in that moment, right there in that section. The last bit here on the bottom is supporting data capture. So if it is an EVP, for example, and you've recorded it and you've got it to play back over and over and over again, then you can tick the audio box because you've got data captured in audio. This is the same for video, photographs, EMF, if you recorded that somehow, temperature changes or ITC. If you recorded any of these information that you can take away from it and review it at a later date, then use that and tick one of those boxes. And that's how the event log works, basically. You go through there and you document that. Every time something paranormal happens, an paranormal event, an activity happens, you can document it in these little events, and that helps you create your timeline as well back in your investigation. So, I mentioned briefly a minute ago about threading and what people use for the log for threading. So if I pop back here to, where was it gone? It's notes, I think it is. This section. What people do is they write here the events that occurred within an investigation and their page numbers. So if something happened, they wrote down the event on page 132. They'll put event location 132. Then that way they can easily trace back to where all the events are within the book themselves, and that makes it nice and easy for them. So if I jump back here, you can see what I've kind of done. So you've got kind of historical research that goes across the 2 pages. I put some names down there that might be relevant, and then I've got the activity, cold spots, that kind of stuff across there, team names, that kind of stuff. Moving forward, I've done a brief map of the area, so you can see how that kind of works as well. Sorry, I nudged the camera then. And then if you move all the way forward to, you can see how I've kind of, this is Warwick Castle, how I've kind of documented here. So I said location, Stonemason's Den, and then I said it was an audible activity. I put the whole team was present, so we understand who was in that team for that point past. And then most of the team, because obviously at the time it's quite quick. In other sessions, I've reduced it to even more, and I've just put simply a knock or a creak as a description of the activity. Simple as that. There was no data captured to support that. The next one's slightly different. There was audio captured on a DVR, which helps back that up, and the recording picked up 2. So we've got basically counting's got some information chucked in there, and again in the same area, so it's audible again. So you can see I've got one event here, 9:06. I don't know about it was actually. And then you've got the 9 o'clock one. So I've recorded them one after the other there. And then if you move on from that, the music room, 9:50. So 50 minutes later, information that was logged down there when I was with the Zaffis team. So, and that's kind of how it works. You go through it and you document bits and pieces as they go through. You put your time and your date and all that kind of stuff, and you tick off, and you put your description in there, and then you get an idea of where it is. Now what I do is a trick, I suppose. I fold over the corner. My mum used to tell me off this. Fold over the corner of the page that I need to go to next, and that way I can flick between here, and I'll do the same for the investigation that I'm on as well, like that. And that way I can flick in between the information, check it, and then bounce back to the other location, check the event log. The last thing that's in the book that I chucked in there, as well as all the information about how to use it at the beginning, is right at the back, which is the experiments section. Now, over the years, I've picked up a few experiments from a few people. The psychic projection one, Brian J. Cano done, which is a brilliant one, as well as many other different ones, and they're all documented in this section here. So you've got a version of the Gansfield experiment is in here, which is not the lab-based one, but a field-based one to make it simpler for you to kind of go through bits and pieces. And you've got the psychic projection one. And basically, you've got method as well, how to do all these as well, see how you can do them on your investigations yourself. Simple audio, Singapore theory ones, all the methods in there, and all the managing results. The lock-off experiments, which we've all done, I'm sure. What else we got? The triple approach EVP, which tells you how to do different variations of EVP approaches, so you can cross-reference different bits and pieces. And then you've got simple glass divination as well, how to do that, but how to document it properly. And then I've got some white space at the back there, so you can document some more ideas around your own experiments. There's plenty of place, actually, all the way through the back there, so you can put more information about your own experiments that you've tried in there as well. So there's plenty of space. The book itself has got plenty of space for documenting everything you need within an investigation, including 6 investigations with all their details and that kind of stuff. And then I think it's about 80 pages of event logs, which should be more than enough to tie into the 6 investigations. And obviously, once you've filled it up, you can go and get another one, so then you can carry on. And then that helps you document all the bits and pieces. Now, what's good about this is, by following the event logs and documenting them bit by bit in there, so you've got the date and the time, you actually help create yourself a timeline within your investigation about when things happen. And that in itself can help you understand what's going on, where and why during investigations. And that itself can be an immensely useful tool to gain out of that, as well as having obviously all the notes about what's actually happened. Because obviously having this in your back pocket, as you can see in mine, means you can whip it out when something happens, scribble down some notes with a torchlight, and then carry on without it taking about 30 seconds to put those notes down, and then you've got an idea of when it happened and where it happened and what happened, rather than half an hour or 45 minutes or an hour or even a day or two later writing those notes up and missing things. So that's where it becomes invaluable. Okay, that's the Paranormal Investigators Journal. Okay, so that was the Paranormal Investigators Journal, which has got all the bits and pieces inside of it, as you saw. Different bits and pieces, the experiments as well, which can be used as well. And I'm always open to new ideas and new versions. And if you put in the comments down below any feedback about if you've got one yourself and what you've seen and what you've got bits you think that could be improved, let me know, and then I'll see if I can tailor them into a new version, put them together, and get another version maybe out there so that you can have the bits and pieces that you're looking for. So all the information is going to be in the description down below. Links to my website where you can get a copy of your own Paranormal Investigators Journal, so you can get cracking on getting that data logged, getting it into the book, and then holding it so you understand what's happened in previous investigations. So you've got that information logged and accessible all the time. And also other bits and pieces in there, like a link to a couple of blog posts where you can put in top level information to help me gather some data and all that kind of stuff towards my own research that I'm doing. And lots of things like that, to be fair. Radio show I done with Parasurge as well about gathering data as well. Probably put a link in there for that as well. So that's the Paranormal Investigators Journal. Go and grab one and then start documenting your investigations and keep hold of all the information in one place. And I'd like to hear all your comments down below. Remember, share, like and subscribe.